Wow, it's a packed house, which is great. Welcome to the Bloustein School at Rutgers and to the Governor James Florio Visiting Scholar in Public Policy Lecture. My name is Vonu Thakuria, and I'm the Dean of the Bloustein School. And our school is a national leader in education, research, and service in urban planning, public policy, community health, health administration, and data analytics and informatics for socially just, healthy, and environmentally sustainable communities. We offer a number of undergraduate majors in these areas, as well as top-ranked professional masters and program and a well-recognized doctoral program. Our school has many thriving research centers on aspects of public policy relating to transportation, green buildings, energy policy, workforce development, civic and public engagement, and other areas. We are today very, very privileged to welcome Governor Phil Murphy to our school. Governor Murphy will speak on a comprehensive approach to ethics reform in Trenton. We are so pleased that over the years, our school has been able to collaborate very closely with Governor Murphy. Several members of the Bloustein School, for example, served on the governor's original transition team. This close working relationship has gone on over the years. Two of many, many examples are the passage of a new law that established very recently a climate change resource center here in Rutgers that is being co-led by the Bloustein School, and also really important work behind the scenes on many aspects of the new New Jersey Clean Energy Act and the newly unveiled Energy Master Plan. I'm also very pleased to welcome former Governor James Florio. He serves as a senior fellow, actually, in public policy in our school, and he was previously a member of the faculty and also a very popular lecturer, and he used to teach a course on decision-making in public and in politics. Governor Florio's public service began as a sailor in the U.S. Navy. He continued that service in the U.S. Congress and then as governor. His years of public service provide an example for our urban planning, public policy, health administration, and other students. I would also like to give a special welcome to Michael Perucci, who is the co-founder and partner of the law firm Florio Perucci, Steinhardt, and Capelli. In fact, this lovely and high-tech auditorium would not have been possible without a gift from your firm. Thank you very much for your generosity. And this was a gift to the school to honor Governor Florio's work for the state and the university. So welcome, Governor Murphy, and I would like to now invite Professor Carl Van Horn to formally introduce both governors, Governor Florio as well as Governor Murphy. And Carl Van Horn is the director of the Bloustein School's Heldrick Center for Workforce Development. He has served as senior advisor to Governor Murphy during the transition and continues to serve as senior advisor for strategy and planning. With that, Carl, I invite you to the stage.
Thank you, Dean. Welcome, everyone. I want to recognize some of the members of the Governor's administration are here today. Commissioner Rob Sarah-Angelo, who's also a graduate of the Bloustein School. Yes. Chief Innovation Officer Beth Novak, who is a senior scholar at the Heldrick Center for Workforce Development as well, with her son, who is joining her. Matt Platkin, who's Chief Counsel to the Governor. Thank you for coming. And also in the Governor's office, Brianna Keys, who is one of the newest members of the Governor's staff and also a graduate of the Bloustein School 2 years ago, I think. I also want to recognize David Sokolow, who's the Executive Director of the State Higher Education Assistance Authority, and who I might have put first, the chair of the authority board, Christy Van Horn. So through this distinguished scholar program at the Bloustein School, we honor Jim Florio, his legacy as a political leader and a dedication to improving our state and our nation. As the dean said, he served our nation for over 50 years as a community organizer, a legislator, a very influential congressman, writing essential legislation about the environment and transportation and many other topics. And for nearly 20 years, he was also a professor here. His many accomplishments have really made the state better for low-income children, a cleaner environment, safer communities, better roads and bridges and airports, and revitalized urban communities. And there's one signature achievement that hits very close to home. Governor Florio allocated the funds to build this building we're standing in today. We also really appreciate his approach to governing, because throughout his long career, he sought evidence-based policy solutions to help those most in need. The character of his leadership offers lessons not only for today's policymakers, but also for students who are entering careers in public service from the Bloustein School. He devoted his career to taking on the tough problems. And when he was awarded the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award for his successful effort to ban assault weapons in New Jersey, he said, "I look forward to another day when public servants who follow the dictates of their conscience are regarded not as heroes worthy of awards, but simply men and women worthy of the offices with which they are entrusted." Well, we honor Governor Florio for his public service, what Aristotle said is the noblest profession. It's fashionable and sometimes justified to bash politicians and government officials, but a government and a society cannot exist, let alone thrive, without effective and ethical public servants such as Governor Florio. Well, today, I am delighted to welcome another distinguished public servant, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. He is laser focused on making progress in our state and in our nation on many of the challenging problems through principled and ethical leadership. After a successful business career, he focused on a wide range of civic, philanthropic, and community organizations in New Jersey and nationally, including the board of the NAACP and the Center for the American Progress. And he and his wife, Tammy Murphy, founded programs to help troubled teens and support victims of domestic abuse. He returned to public service when President Obama appointed Governor Murphy as ambassador to the Federal Republic of Germany, where he served with distinction until 2013. Over 5 years ago, the governor and his wife made a generous multi-year contribution to the Heldrick Center for Workforce Development that enabled us to put together what's called the New Start Career Network, which assists New Jersey's long-term unemployed workers return to work. Now in operation for 5 years, the New Start Career Network has served over 5,000 individuals with free web-based services and in-person services delivered by over 300 volunteer job coaches. This unique and innovative project gained national recognition from the Obama administration, the Federal Reserve Bank, national nonprofits and foundations, and received the Jefferson Award for volunteerism. And most importantly, the gratitude of those individuals who returned to work and, as Wood said to me, got my life back together. The New Start Career Network has now served as the model for the New Jersey Career Network that the governor announced in his State of the State message just last month. And the Heldrick Center is working with the Department of Labor and the Office of Innovation to expand these services to serve thousands more New Jerseyans. Governor Murphy has achieved an impressive set of accomplishments, and I don't think he'll mind if I recite some of them. He has been improving the lives of New Jerseyans and inspiring policymakers and advocates around the nation. Even before he was sworn in as governor, he demonstrated his values by recruiting a cabinet that reflects New Jersey's diversity, with a majority of women and minorities in important leadership positions, and by inviting hundreds of individuals, including more than a dozen faculty and staff from the Bloustein School, to help his administration develop policies for his program. And in 2 years in his administration, he has already accomplished an enormous amount. expanding preschool education and increased funding for public schools in our state's poorest communities, strengthening policies that curb gun violence, and implementing comprehensive criminal justice reform, announcing strategies to build a stronger and fairer economy and reclaim New Jersey's role as a leader in the innovation economy, investing in people and communities, raising the minimum wage for hundreds and thousands of individuals, enacting paid sick and family leave policy for workers, and now the nation's strongest equal pay law, providing free tuition for young people and adults from moderate income families to attend county colleges, and expanding apprenticeship programs for new and laid off workers, expanding protections for the state's undocumented residents and LGBTQ communities, restoring funding to Planned Parenthood and women's health programs, including family planning services, and protecting health care for all by supporting the Affordable Care Act. And last but not least, creating a state energy master plan that sets New Jersey on a path to 100% clean energy by 2050, and taking action that will create offshore wind technologies that could, in 10 years, produce enough clean energy to power millions of homes in our state. Now, Frances Perkins, who's one of my personal heroes, and the first woman to be a member of the President's cabinet and the architect of President Roosevelt's New Deal, summed up her view on government in this very elegant way. The people are what matter in government, and a government should aim to do everything possible to make sure to give all the people under its jurisdiction the best possible life. Governor Murphy, following in the path laid out by Frances Perkins, is working to remedy our state and nation's most challenging problems, and especially for society's most vulnerable individuals, the poor, the unemployed, the sick, and victims of violence and neglect. It is an honor and a privilege to introduce a leader who is devoted to bending the arc of history towards justice and greater opportunity for all. Thank you, Governor.
I said to Governor Florio, I was disappointed you left off the Heisman Trophy, Carl, but other than that, that was a very gracious introduction. Good evening, everyone, especially to Governor Jim Florio. And I think the governor wants to say a few words perhaps after my remarks and before we take a few questions. Christy, nice to see you. David and my team, honored to be with you. In all seriousness, Carl, thank you so much for not just your gracious introduction, but your friendship and partnership, including from when it was cold, dark, and lonely. So thank you for tonight and for every night. I'm not sure what happened to Dean Vanu Takuria. Where did you go, Vanu? Thank you so much. I think with Vanu, you can just, it's sort of like Elvis share Vanu. But it's a real honor to be here, a belated welcome, a very belated welcome to New Jersey and to the Bloustein School and the Rutgers family, to all of the Rutgers team, especially here the students, and to my team members who are here. It's an incredible honor to be here tonight. Governor Florio, more on you in a moment, but the real honor for me is to be delivering the James J. Florio Policy Lecture. It's incredibly humbling and deeply felt. It's an honor for me to actually be back here at Bloustein in particular and at Rutgers in general. I spent a lot of time on this campus, in fact, on all of Rutgers campuses. I don't think I can overstate my affinity for this university and the excitement that I feel for Rutgers' future, and with it for our collective future. Atop the list of reasons for this excitement is every Rutgers student, both here tonight and around the campuses. Now, it's a Wednesday evening in the middle of February. The Scarlet Knights tip off against Michigan in less than 2 hours, and yet you're showing such devotion by being here tonight. But if you think I'm going to keep you here past tip-off time, don't worry. I'm going to the game too. However, the fact that you are here tonight to continue, I hope, learning and partaking in a civil dialogue about the future of our state gives me tremendous faith about our future. Looking around, I have no fear at all that your generation will someday be the ones leading it, and it gives me great optimism. Another reason for my excitement in being here tonight and all the times I come to this campus is the incoming president of Rutgers, Dr. Jonathan Holloway. I've had the chance to speak with him now at length. His energy is unmistakable, and his vision for Rutgers for leading is clear. And while I'm at it, I want to give a huge shout out. Bob Barchi, I don't think he's here unless I don't see him, but a big shout out to President Dr. Bob Barchi for his tremendous leadership over the past decade and to his entire team. And I got to be honest, I'm also excited for the return of Coach Greg Schiano, just as I know many, many Scarlet Knight fans are. I could barely control Rob Angelo here in front of me during that few weeks of challenging moments. Rutgers joined the Big Ten because it knew it could compete with the absolute best, both in the classroom and on the field. This is not either or, this is and both when you're at that level, and you all know that. Rutgers stands shoulder to shoulder with this nation's best research universities, including the ones that it meets in athletic competition. And suffice it to say, on multiple counts, Rutgers' future is blindingly bright. Of course, that doesn't mean anyone can sit back and just expect good things to happen. Everyone still has jobs to do and expectations to meet. And that includes me, and that's what brings me here tonight. I sought this office with a pledge that if elected, I would base every decision on one consideration: doing what is right, not for my next election, but for the next generation. A big part of this pledge was changing the culture in Trenton to make it more open and accessible, responsible, and ultimately more representative of our state and of our great people, to make sure that government works for the people and not for special interests. That means we've had to take on some tough fights, but thankfully there are strong models for principled leadership in the governor's office that I've been able to tap into. The late Governor Brendan Byrne was an invaluable source of wisdom and certainly wit. Former Governor Tom Kean has been a terrific friend and mentor. Same with a dear friend, Governor Dick Cody, and I'll have more on him later. And then there's the guy in front of me, Governor Jim Florio. As has been mentioned, state legislator, congressman, governor, elder statesman. Over his career in public life, Jim Florio has worn many hats. He's taken on many tough fights. Some he won and some he lost, but he never wavered from doing what he believed was in the best interests of the people of New Jersey. I think the principles that Governor Florio took to the office every day are best summed up by one of the last lines of his fourth and final State of the State address delivered the week before he left office. And the governor said, and I quote him, "Short-term expediency as a way of avoiding the long-term public interest is, in the ultimate reckoning, a sure thing losing cause." End of quote. Words to live by, indeed words to govern by. In May 1992, Governor Florio visited a political science class at what was at the time Montclair State College. Today, as you know, it's a full-fledged university. He was there to propose a comprehensive suite of ethics reforms aimed, bless you, at cleaning up Trenton. We don't miss a thing up here. And as he said, I have to say before I say this, Governor Florio and I share many things in common, and that is we both like to run. We've each had a challenging recent history. As you can see, if you haven't seen already, Governor Florio will explain what happened to him. I have joined him in sympathy by pulling a hamstring on a 5K in Sea Isle City this weekend. I wanted to get that off my chest. I want to quote again on that day what Governor Florio said to that class at Montclair State. He proposed this suite of ethics reforms, quote, "to restore reason to the system and faith in government." So I am proud, nearly 28 years to the day later, to stand before another group of New Jersey scholars to put forward our administration's comprehensive plan to modernize the ethics laws of our state so that the people of New Jersey can regain faith about the way business is conducted in the State House, and so they can have unprecedented access to our political process. I am sure there are those who will hear what I am proposing tonight and criticize these proposals because they may challenge or even threaten a status quo in which they are at present very comfortable. But as Governor Florio reminds us, in the ultimate reckoning, theirs is a sure thing losing cause. I want to acknowledge a bipartisan group of state legislators, some longtime veterans, others only in office for a few years, who are joining me in these reforms. And it's one thing that has brought us together. We all agree that the time has come to take another whack at the long-standing so-called traditions of Trenton. The time is now to dig deeper and work harder to change the culture. I could thank a lot of people in my orbit, but I could thank none with more passion and conviction than our Chief Counsel, Matt Platkin, who has been with me from almost day one and has been a leader in getting us to tonight. So, Matt, thank you. Some of the steps I will outline today can be achieved through executive action, but most of the steps will require legislation. And I want to thank my partners in this effort. I mentioned him earlier, former Democratic Governor Dick Cody, Republican Senator Chris Brown, and Republican Assemblyman Ryan Peters as sponsors for the legislation that I'm about to go through. And I would guess that more will join as this train picks up speed. This is an example of the best of what Trenton can be and what we can do. People willing to take on a failed status quo, people working across party lines to bring change, people putting the public good ahead of personal gain, people committed to opening up the process. But too often we see a different Trenton, one where the culture can be resistant to change and looks out for the insiders rather than looking out for the people we are supposed to serve. I'm glad that we're finally recognizing that change must come and that it must start now. To paraphrase my former boss, President Barack Obama, change doesn't come from Trenton, change comes to Trenton. And what I'm proposing and what my partners in the legislature will take on through their sponsorship is the first full-scale and comprehensive push for new ethics rules in Trenton in a decade. In that time, in that decade, trust in our state institutions has deteriorated. New Jersey made national headlines, but too often it was for all the wrong reasons. In the year 2012, the Center for Public Integrity gave New Jersey a B+ grade on ethics, which was, by the way, the top in the nation. By 2015, 3 years later, we had fallen to being a D student. That's D as in dog, 19th in the nation. Let's get back to being at the top of the class. These proposals will shine light into the dark corners of our politics and reinstill faith as best we can that those elected to serve are there to serve the people, all of the people, not the special or their own interests. Now let me be perfectly clear. The women and men I have the honor to serve alongside and who I work with are fine, principled people. I believe firmly that they all want to do what's best for our communities and our constituents. But that doesn't mean that we can't take the common sense steps I'm proposing. We can always do better. That applies equally to the executive branch, over which I preside, as it does to the legislature, or county and local governments. It is time that we restore trust and confidence in our institutions. That's what the obligation of our offices demands. So here goes. First, let's reform the practices of lobbyists and others who make their livings by trying to influence legislation and laws. In the coming weeks, I will use my executive authority, this is one where we don't need legislation, to increase transparency in our state and local government by requiring new measures of transparency for those who do business with the state. Through legislation, let's lower the threshold of work that defines lobbying from its current 20 a year level. I don't know how we came up with that. Governor Florio may be able to give me some light on that one, to a new threshold of 1 hour a year, 20 hours a year down to 1 hour a year level. And let's end the so-called shadow lobbying industry by requiring that everyone hired to influence government decisions be disclosed. We know it's not just the work of lobbyists, but PR people, lawyers, research analysts, in the amorphously titled consultants and advisors who often have their own pre-existing relationships and often have just as much, if not more, pull with the people who the lobbyists target. In fact, Senate President Steve Sweeney introduced a similar proposal last session, and I thank him for his attention to this issue. And I look forward to working with him and the sponsors to get this reform done. So that's the first bucket. The second one, we propose the elimination of the broad exemption of the legislature from the so-called Open Public Records Act, otherwise known as OPRA, and not as in Oprah Winfrey. Under the current public records law, legislative communications that either involve constituents or which involve legislators in the course of their official duties are exempt from disclosure. Over the years, these exemptions have been interpreted to mean that the legislature is entirely exempt from OPRA. This has led to some absurd results. For instance, if a lobbyist who was advocating for her or his client's interests, not ours, sends a draft bill to a staff member in my office, it is a public record that can be disclosed. But if the same lobbyist sends the same bill to a legislative staff member, it is exempt from disclosure. That's what you call an unlevel playing field. And it's the reason why so many residents are skeptical about government. Now, I'm not saying that certain privileges should not apply to internal communications. I know that they are important to ensuring that we can have an open and honest discussion. But let's all agree to live under the same rules. It is time we level the playing field. Our third group or bucket of reforms would make it clear that no one enters government service to get a big payday for themselves, either while they are serving or on the back end. So let's bring the legislature's rules on accepting gifts in line with the more stringent standards that have been set for the executive branch. Executive branch employees are subject to a zero-tolerance policy and cannot accept any gifts that are related in any way to their public duties. Again, let's all be on an equal footing. This should just be common sense. I had a real live example to share with you. There is now almost a shrine being built around a very nice bottle of bourbon that was given from somebody to someone in our orbit, which we can't accept. So as we're in the process of returning the bottle of bourbon, we're all, I'll speak for myself, I'm a Murphy, by the way. I orbit the bottle several times occasionally a day until we've got it figured out where we're sending it back to. In the same vein, we propose applying the same rules for outside employment for all members of senior staff across the executive and legislative branches. No one on my senior staff can accept an outside gig, no matter for how much or how little, without first getting that job cleared by the State Ethics Commission. Let's expand this policy and ensure that the same process is followed by both branches, staff members in either branch of government above a certain income threshold, such that they must be required to receive ethics clearance from either the State Ethics Commission or the Joint Legislative Committee on Ethical Standards before collecting any outside paycheck. Seems to me common sense. We similarly propose standardizing the financial disclosures that employees of the executive and legislative branches must complete. Right now, the executive branch financial disclosure form is more robust than the legislature's. But I think we should go further. We will introduce a new disclosure form that anyone working in either branch of government who earns in excess of $100,000 will have to complete each year when this bill becomes law. So that'll be a form that they're going to have to, a new disclosure form they'll have to complete. Our fourth bucket, we have 5, by the way. You're thinking to yourself, he's got 37 buckets. Second half score, Rutgers. Fourth, we propose doubling the length of time that a former public official, whether it's a former governor, cabinet official, or legislator, must wait before they can register as a lobbyist from 1 year, which is what it is now, to 2 years. And we propose applying this cooling off period to any executive branch and legislative branch staff that has to complete the financial disclosure form that I just mentioned a minute ago, so the senior staff members as well. This time frame would ensure that an outgoing official can't lobby within the same legislative session in which they may have served in public office. Many other states, including in New York, Colorado, and Alabama, have a 2-year cooling off period, and so should we. And finally, the fifth and last bucket, we must ensure greater transparency in how the people's business is conducted. I think we've all read stories of late-night legislative sessions with amendments agreed to and voted upon before they've actually been committed to paper and put forward for the public to see. Chaos and decisions made behind closed doors may have always been associated with Trenton, but they are not how our democratically elected institutions should function in the 21st century. How can the public make their voices heard when bills can be voted on before their text is even available for the public to see? When it took office last January, the House of Representatives in D.C. under Speaker Nancy Pelosi's leadership gave us a great model, which I propose we follow. No bills or resolutions should be voted on until their final version has been made publicly available on an official website for at least 72 hours. Our Chief Innovation Officer, Beth Novak, is here, and she's been pounding into me for going on 2 years that you need people to be with you in the governing process, not to be kept in the dark, and this is a great example of that. I further propose that the only way either the Senate or Assembly can get around this rule would be by an emergency 75% supermajority vote, the same threshold that currently exists for waiving certain procedural requirements. And let's require the disclosure of all interest groups who go before the legislature's committees to publicly support or oppose legislation. Right now, the only way the general public can get this information is to take time off from work and attend a hearing, or to take time from the rest of their day to listen to its archived proceedings. Let's put this information, again, I'm operating under the North Star that Beth has established for me. Let's put this information right out in the open, where the average New Jerseyan can find it within seconds, rather than having to cull through hours of testimony. California already does this, and so should we. Altogether, these are 9 distinct and common sense ideas across 5 different categories. Make no mistake, these are big proposals that will upset some people. But we must attack the understandable cynicism that discourages so many people by opening up our democracy and allowing our residents to be more engaged and better informed. They are designed to make serious, profound, and lasting changes to Trenton's culture. There's an old line that laws are like sausages. You don't want to see how either is made. Well, in this time when consumers are demanding higher standards when it comes to the makeup of their sausages, why wouldn't we demand the same of our laws? I don't want to upset the sausage lobby out there, by the way. Now, I do not put forward they're very tough. I do not put forward these proposals, and I know that my legislative partners will not introduce them to try to embarrass anybody. This is not the cause of government. Make no mistake, all parties can do better, and that includes the executive branch and yours truly. We are all in this together. Our cause, after all, I kind of like the soundtrack there. It gives me a little bit of a lift in my Allbirds here. We are all in this together. Our cause, after all, is found in no less than the opening words of our national Constitution, a more perfect union. You heard Barack Obama used to talk about perfecting, to waking up every day trying to perfect the union. Governor Florio captured this sentiment 30 years ago when he delivered remarks actually at Rutgers commencement in 1990. And in your remarks, Governor, you said, and I quote you, "We are not a perfect society. Far from it. But we are perfectible. And every so often we are called upon to be a little bit more alert, a little more active." So that is the meaning of why we are here tonight. Ours is not a perfect government. It's good, but it's not perfect, and we all know that. But that doesn't mean we just accept Trenton's political culture as something that we can't change, or as something that isn't worthy of trying to change. That does not mean that we give up on the idea that Trenton is not perfectible. And in this political day and age, in this heightened atmosphere, we are called upon, again, to be a little bit more alert and a little more active. That's something we should embrace and not run from. And we must embrace the urgency of change. The legislators who will sponsor these bills, Democrats and Republicans, prove that the desire to improve our government, to make it more responsive and relatable, is not a partisan endeavor. Neither party holds a monopoly on ideas, nor on the desire to make things better. Governor Florio showed tremendous strength during his time in office in standing up and taking on the tough fights. But he showed equal strength in sitting down and working together with those of the opposite party. So let's do that again, and let's start right here. I thank you all so much for the honor of being able to speak tonight. Thank you to my legislative colleagues that I mentioned in absentia for their friendship and partnership. Again, my deepest thanks to the Bloustein School Dean, to you and your entire team, to Rutgers University, to each and every one of you, especially the students here. And with that, it is my great honor to introduce a guy who I look up to every day, who had the courage to take on those tough fights. Please help me welcome Governor Jim Florio.
Thank you very much, and I'm really very pleased to be here. Thank the governor for being willing to come here as this program. He follows the tradition of the last 3 or 4 years, where we've had Senator Bradley here, we had Mayor Edward Hill here, and Congressman Russ Holt. So your thoughtful remarks tonight were really in keeping with what we're trying to do. I feel I also need a pressure to explain to you, after all those nice things that were said about me, that I'm really not a thug and I'm not a street fighter. That what happened was that some of you know, I exercise fairly regularly. I run about 3 miles, so a very slow pace. But what has happened is I fell while I was running, and my wife was very frustrated about this because she continues tries to make me aware of the fact that I'm not 25 years old anymore. She doesn't lose in all these contests, but I want to just express just a couple of words about the Bloustein School and public policy. You really do us honor by coming in. Public policy is something I've devoted most of my adult life to, and it's something that's very meaningful to me, something that we really emphasize here at Bloustein, working from the assumption that public policy that serves the public interest is the goal. And to do that, I've concluded it's essential to get people, real people, average people, engaged and informed about public policy. Engaged because that's participatory democracy, which is what the system's about. The system doesn't work unless we work at making it work. And informed because the choices are getting more and more complex. There are more choices to make. And choices is what democracy is about, making those types of choices. And so you can't solve a problem if you don't understand the problem. So our goal ought to be to do that. We do that at Bloustein, and I'm proud of the association of over 20 years that I've been able to have here. And I'll just conclude by offering 2 pieces of advice, particularly to the students who are here. This is advice that has stood me in good stead in a number of ways. First, reject the advice that was given to us by a very prominent American many years ago, who told us that government is not the answer, government is the problem. That is naive at best. The fact of the matter is government is not inherently good, not inherently bad. It's a tool which in the hands of people of good faith who are competent and honest is absolutely essential for the orderly working of a society. And the second piece of advice is always try to work hard to maintain your independence, particularly in matters of principle that are extremely important. I subscribe to the philosophy of that great philosopher, Janis Joplin, who said that freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. I take that to mean you should never be so invested in any project or program or party or person such that you can't walk away if things make you feel uncomfortable and feel not correct. Trust to your instincts. That's something that we should all be doing. That is the way that we make sure that we stay on the right path. Be your own person. Trust to your own instincts. So I'm proud to be here. I offer my best wishes to the governor and tell you Bloustein stands ready to be of assistance to the state in any way possible. Thank you very much.
I'll walk around. I think we'll take a few questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, so I'll start from the front here where most of the students are sitting and give them the first shot at this. And the question for the governor, who'd like to start? There's always a silence at the beginning. Yes, okay, go ahead, right ahead. The youngest student in the entire room.
I actually have a question. Would your ethics reforms include any new public engagement forms for young people?
Man, I love that. At the moment, no, but they should. That's a great idea. It's a great idea. Matt, help me out there, will you? You know, one of the things I was going to say this earlier, and this is a good time to say it, is we don't have all the answers. So I've laid out what we think is a pretty comprehensive set of reforms relative to where we are today, but we are wide open to other suggestions. I think that's a really good suggestion. So bear with us and we'll come back to you on that. I'll have my people speak to your people.
Close connection. Someone slightly older, maybe?
There's somebody in the back here. Oh, come on.
Make a suggestion.
Yes.
Law enforcement officials running for public office raise questions as to motivation. To the degree that there's a bar or a limitation for 3 years, 4 years, something like this.
Oh, interesting.
Might be something worth looking into.
Matt, did you get that? Very, another good suggestion. Somebody way in the back. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Governor Murphy. I'm a recent college graduate, and climate change is one of the biggest.
From where, by the way?
From Ithaca College.
That's true.
And climate change is one of the biggest threats facing my generation. Your energy master plan calls for 100% clean energy as a tool to fight climate change in New Jersey. So why are you allowing your own agency, NJ Transit, to propose a new taxpayer-funded power plant that will burn scratch gas and push us even closer towards climate catastrophe?
So we do, in fact, what's your name, ma'am?
Sam?
Sam? So we do, in fact, as you've rightfully stated, we have a energy master plan that would lead to 100% clean energy in New Jersey by the year 2050. Other states have had these objectives. Some of them on paper look like they're maybe even more aggressive. But some of them are also, many of those are written on the back of a cocktail napkin. This is a 290-page report based on extensive shareholder engagement and modeling that's been done over the past now almost 2 years, I think, right? So I would just say this, I would put New Jersey up against any state in America, period, as it relates to clean energy and the green economy. And there's really no one close. California is probably the one who would finish in second place. We do take each of these projects thoroughly, one at a time, to make sure we call balls and strikes, to make sure, among other things, people can't come back sometime later and undo a decision that we made that we didn't base it on the full and complete review. And that project is one of many projects that are in a process of being reviewed. The bigger, almost bigger part of our energy and clean energy impetus is actually something that hasn't gotten as much airtime as the master energy plan. And that is, we are in the process of becoming the first state in the nation that will actually factor climate change and resiliency into the permitting process at the Department of Environmental Protection. So that if you come and you want to build X or Y on this particular site, and the DEP is among already the best in the business anywhere in America, but they don't have it within them right now to include climate change as a factor. That will change in New Jersey. We will be #1 in America to have ever done that. And I don't want to get too political, Dean, and blow up your 501c3 status, but that is in direct contradiction to the approach that the Trump administration is taking. They are now taking any climate considerations out of the mix. We are putting them in, unlike any state in America. Thank you. We're gonna switch to somebody else, sir. I answer the question. Very happy to talk to you about it afterwards. Thank you. Hey, sir.
Let me tip my hat to you for the appointment of the first nurse as the
Yeah, how cool is that?
health commissioner, graduate of St. Peter's High School, just up the road.
I love that, Judy Persicelli. So let's hear it for Judy. First nurse ever to serve as the health commissioner in New Jersey.
I have 3 buckets. They're very short. Second, thank you for calling Mrs. Quinlan on her 90th birthday.
Oh, my honor.
She asked that I point that out to you.
Please tell her I'm looking forward to keep calling her. I don't want to stalk Mrs. Quinlan, but I'm looking forward to.
Well,
Okay.
Governor, and thirdly, on behalf of many of us here, I want to tip my hat to you on your position on the vaccination bill. Could you give us some insight into where that's going?
I'd prefer not.
The reason I asked it, I spoke to Jerry Brown. One of his last acts was to sign that bill in
Right.
California.
Yeah.
That's where, as things were very close at the times of the
Sure.
measures that we take. So
And we continue to be under with
sorry for
Governor
asking
Newsom.
The third, but could you
No,
share with us
no
where
worries.
it might be going?
You earned it with your gracious first 2 buckets. I don't know is the answer. It's legislation that has to come to me, has to get out of both chambers, and then it would come to me for consideration. So I actually don't know where it stands. It has not been. We just had a leadership meeting last week. It wasn't on the agenda. I'm not saying that it won't be at some point on the agenda, but it wasn't part of our discussion. I would just say the value statement with which I would approach this and our team would approach it is the safety and security of our 9 million residents is job #1. That informs, by the way, Judy's work and all of our work on the coronavirus right now, as an example. It informs a lot of other different policies that we have. And we are Moneyball people. We base our decisions as best we can on science and data, and we'll continue to do that. There are great passions on both sides of this. We've heard at length from both sides, but that's sort of where we are right now to be determined as to where it goes. But thank you for the good words.
Other question?
We go this side, we'll come back. Sir.
Governor, my father spent his entire career working at the EPA, actually rather than contract with the EPA because his father was required.
Where was he working, sorry? EPA?
EPA, yes.
Okay.
Previously with West Kentucky and then later in his career for Lockheed Martin, ironically enough. And he was a huge fan of Governor Florio because of his authorship and sponsorship and passage of the Superfund bill that allowed for this.
You bet.
That allowed for the EPA to remediate so many of these sites in New Jersey, one of the places that allowed that in favor of the environment and in fact our citizens and their constituents. My question is, do you have any concern that excessive consideration of CO2 emissions is distracting from broader environmental concerns by way of like preservation, whether it's farmland or environmental issues in New Jersey, and sort of similar issues independent of the climate change issue?
I don't, but I want to qualify that. So within our 4 walls of New Jersey and the considerations that we have to be and both, and I think we're doing our best at being and both. So we have to be concerned about CO2 emissions and climate change and resiliency matters and all that goes with that. And we have no choice, and we are, and we will. But I don't think if you look at our actions, that is at the expense of preservation, other endeavors that may have, the premise of your question, perhaps that may have fallen by the wayside. I don't see that. And I could commit to you we will do everything we can and not let that happen. But here's the but. We have, in almost all of the above instances, hostility from this current federal administration. And so our bigger battles are between what we're doing on the one hand and what is going on in Washington. And I'll give you one that is sort of in one of the buckets of concern here, and that is an attempt by the administration in Washington to allow offshore oil and gas drilling, which could be devastating to our interests, particularly the shore, and particularly the shore economy. And so that, more fossil fuel is bad for CO2 emissions, but the real reason we were against that, so that's a given, is because of the damage that could have done if there was a spill, or there is a spill, and there usually are spills, or some accident, what that would do to our shore, and all the wildlife and the economy and everything that goes with that. So that's where our biggest battles are. Our battles have not been, yes, we've got budgetary constraints, and we've only got so much to go around. That's always the case. But with that, given that consideration, I think we're trying to be and both inside of the state. But my concern will be that we'll have an ongoing us versus them reality with the federal administration.
Do you pledge to ongoingly prevent all of going offshore New Jersey?
Well, but we've already signed it. It's signed into law. Please. Oh, sorry.
Henry Coleman.
Henry, I didn't see you, man. Nice to see you. You're in your civvies.
We got,
How are you, man?
he's going
Sorry.
to go.
I apologize. I'll come over and give you a hug in exchange for that. The one in the back, I'll come right back down.
So for your ethical changes, the pledge to will you include the ability to, sorry, I'm a little nervous.
Don't worry about it.
Will you,
Let me just have you start in an easy place. What's your name?
Stephanie.
And where are you?
Town, actually.
From Middletown. What street?
I live in Winthrop. I live on Bluefield off of Spring Time. You guys can all find me.
Okay. Keg party at your place at 11. Are you a student?
No, I actually work at, I did graduate last year.
Okay. Congratulations on all the above.
Thank you.
We got that out of the way. So here we go.
My question is for women in the workplace, your ethical reform, will you ensure that women in the workplace that is free of sexual harassment and sexual?
Yeah. So that's another whole topic which we did a lot on yesterday, right? So thank you for reminding me. That was very good of you to do that. So we've read about awful stuff, and too many women in particular have experienced awful stuff in this state. That's another page that we're turning in culture that we're trying to change. And yesterday was an example of that. It's one big step, but a step of many that we're taking, some of which we've already taken and some of which we have yet to take. But yesterday I announced with some leaders in this field who are as good as it gets, not just in New Jersey, but in America. Patricia Teffenhart would be my particular example, that she runs NJ CASA, which is the New Jersey Coalition Against Sexual Assault. I believe I've got that right. She stood with me. And yesterday's discussion, today's ethics, yesterday was sexual harassment. A whole series of steps, mostly that'll be taken by legislation. A little bit like I mentioned tonight, most of the stuff's legislative. Some of it can be done regulatory or by executive order. And this is everything from extending statute of limitations, requiring certain standards to be met, both in government and in the private sector. This is a whole of New Jersey law, extending the list of the definition of employees to include categories such as domestic workers and interns. It will establish that even one incident can qualify for a harmful workplace. You don't need a series. That you can have a harmful workplace or an experience of sexual harassment that does not include touching because right now there's a narrow definition and accepted standard that it has to have some physical contact. And then by executive order, we took it on a couple of steps. We license hundreds of thousands of people in the state. So the Division of Consumer Affairs has oversight of the 50-something boards that these hundreds of thousands of licensees are under. And so we, by executive action, can put in a more robust application process, a more robust ongoing monitoring process, which that action was taken. And then separately, the gaming industry is a huge industry in our state as an employment matter and as a business matter. It's also been a locus of a lot of sexual harassment experiences over the years, and this is a direct, through the Division of Gaming Enforcement, a direct set of principles that they will now have to operate under. I'm very happy you brought that up. Thank you. I have to go over to Henry now just to give him a hug. It's the first time I've ever seen you not wearing a suit.
You should visit Bloustein.
I will. I have to. I don't get here often enough. What do you got?
Governor, many of the ethics reforms that you announced are inside Trenton kind of things. They're very, very familiar concerns to people that work in Trenton, but perhaps less so to people outside of the Trenton loop. You also propose doing them because they're the right things to do. And I think that that's the kind of thing that's motivating you and certainly the kind of thing that's motivating Governor Florio. However, we ought to keep in mind that not having the kind of reforms that you proposed in place cost. They cost the government in terms of loaded expenditures. They cost the government in terms of additional revenues that need to be made. And my suggestion is that as part of your rollout for this, that you try to identify some specific areas that would be effective if, in fact, we had a more straightforward, a more transparent,
I love that.
a more honest approach to doing this, and where it would affect the person outside of Trenton, because they would have a more efficient.
So perhaps if we don't cure X, this will cost us Y millions a year, and that's Z dollars per resident.
Or why it takes so much longer to get
Yeah,
simple things
I love
done
that.
because of these.
I love that. To make it real. It's a great suggestion. Thank you, Henry.
Okay, basketball game for you next, is that it?
I have to do one more quick meeting and then over to hoops. By the way, anyone here going to the game?
Rob
Okay.
already left. He is,
Rob is actually, this should be a concern of Michigan. Rob's refereeing the game.
well,
You're going to see, that's what I say, a rare sighting time. You're going to see both Governor Christie and Governor Murphy, yours truly, at the game. So keep an eye. Talk about bipartisan support, huh?
well, let's thank the governor again for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Good to see you.
All right?
Yeah, good.
Thank you. Thank you, Gov.